They're good where like you got like the crosswalk down, where the hotel would be, where you don't expect there would be one.
Yeah.
So you hit the button and
You guys are ready.
Well, I have nothing to do with any of this.
I saw it laying there, I'm getting
I'm not gonna talk about what the use of the speed is.
I just happened to see the title on it.
Oh, boy. Strongly encourage you.
That's great.
Yeah, I would have put it down, but I can't read.
No. George, how are you?
Are you gonna take us on your meeting?
All right, what?
How are you? All right.
Are you gonna take us on your meeting?
Kind of. Yeah, it's really.
It was just the start. I didn't, you know, they went out there
That's not too bad.
2 o'clock
Yeah,
and walked the whole property.
Do my thing and then I'll
Okay.
say
And I thought
Okay.
about going to that until I went
Okay.
outside. It's just 90 degrees. And I thought, can you imagine how many mosquitoes are
Yeah,
going to be out
I
in
think
the woods?
I think he's right. All right. I think so.
Hi, George.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
well, if it makes you feel any better, you know, your friends, that, you know, nominate you, put you on the list. I had the same thing happen. I didn't go to Preston in July. We were doing all of the election of officers. So I come down, I didn't go that day because I had something else to do, and I just wanted to know what was going on, so. 2 other ones went, guess what, I come back, that service officer elected and I wasn't even there. So the day was spent there, in Preston.
They were really impressed with the property. They said it was, somebody got in there 4 people there. Walking down there, so it's just how, they just want ideas of what they, facilities or how far I'm
Pretty well, staying out of the miserable weather.
Maybe it could be windshield.
Yeah, that would be better.
They brought up
I gotta tell you, my uncle's name, Doug,
Really?
he was a principal in Farmington. Did you ever hear of another coach?
No. And where, principal and where?
Farmington, Minnesota?
Farmington? Really?
He lives down in Arizona now.
Oh, well, at least you got smart.
Yes.
I can't believe that. Oh, really? Oh, darn. I have no family in this area whatsoever. They had you know, I'm the only one.
Where's the rest?
Well, they're in New Ulm, that area there, or else California, so.
And he's from.
He is, yeah. You know, we went out,
It was front, yeah.
there's a cemetery out here, Bang, East Going, Highway 56. For Memorial Day, we put out the flags, and it's a Norwegian cemetery. So this was out there, and we, you know, mark off each one wherever it is, call the names in, so that they get that flag.
Nothing down there.
Well, I've never seen
I didn't realize.
here it walks up to a stone, and it's on this side is one name, and there was one back here, so I walked over and I thought, I think I just seen my name on the backside of this stone. So I started around, and this is apparently at one time was a first thing for 2 families to use the same headstone buried on this side and this side. There it said H-E-N-K-E. I don't know who it was.
It'll have to
Didn't know there was
be-
any urgent in there. But there was
You feel like you were in Scrooge.
Whatever.
He sees his name on the tombstone.
Well, I imagine maybe, you know, this was a long time back, and I imagine money was hard to get, so there was a number of them after I started looking, so I made it a point now
Hi, Richard.
to look, see if there's 2 names on the
Have you
stone.
seen him since?
Out there I did, but I haven't any other place, really haven't been to any other place, but I'm sure to make that point.
Augie?
Okay, well, you know, is he retired out there then?
Yes.
Okay.
Flagstaff.
Flagstaff? Oh, this is cool. Or,
All that's from where in California?
I was up Bakersfield 38 years.
Best friend moved out there a year ago.
Bakersfield?
That's so hot. They're financial. Oh.
You got used to it. That's why when you see today, it's not too bad.
Hardly anybody knew that system.
How you doing?
Very pretty good. How about you? No. Well, I called in service.
I just gotta, I have it right here. Here it is. Well, here it is what I wanted. Sometimes they think it's best to keep it right in the book.
Yeah. Trying to take it out of these same 100 businesses. I don't have a phone. Smiling away.
I thought you.
You then have to bring the. Yeah. Yeah, anyways.
You know that his second house was 509.
Yeah.
Joe, one on the agenda?
Well, that's what I've always thought.
Thank you. You're welcome. You walk right by and forget it every time.
But you're younger than I am.
I thought we were the same age. I'll be 50 this year. You'll be 50 this year?
Gave the guy one card.
Nearly double that.
That's on. The rest we put down here. And it didn't sound familiar to me.
As you know.
If you're just here to kind of hear.
He's rushing for this.
About this.
Well,
No, it's just
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and that being done, we'll call the August 10th, 2016 City Council meeting to order. All council members present, Administrator Paulson, Engineer Ryan, Attorney Biggs. Citizens' comments. Do we have anyone who would like to,
Yes.
Wayne would like to address the council?
Council and honored mayor, I did give copies of these to the city administrator, hopefully he passes on to people.
Yes.
And if you had a chance to read it, it's pretty straightforward. The sign that would be placed on, basically would be where the freight part of the current station is here. I don't know if the city's got a copy of it, Mike, do you have it?
I've got to get with you and get that put up.
Probably.
Our goal was to have it done before Rose Fest, so we've still got a little bit of time.
Maybe I can get some friends from the American Legion or get it. It's not that difficult.
I was gonna go talk to Don about it also.
Okay. Anyhow, it's really, the beginning of a project was to identify the station and how important it was in early days, even up to the 1970s. And you could take a train from here if you wanted to go to St. Paul. I think it cost about $8, drop a lot of money. The next step that I want to do is call the Friends of the depot, or into the station. And what we're trying to do is form a volunteer group of people who have lived previous to when the station was closed up. And the long-term goal there is to try to collect artifacts, things like schedules, maybe signs and stuff that were typical, or they found on that station, and to place them maybe perhaps behind screens or behind plexiglass windows in the station. The thought being is to have an open house at the station, show them what we've done, what it was all about, and try and get some interest in doing that. But the third step is to hold a train show. Train shows in Minnesota are as common as mosquitoes. They have lots of them everywhere. One not every car from here, they're in their 12th year. It's a home run for the town. You get the average turnout, 200-300 men with money in their pockets. And most every business, if you're selling gas, if you're selling food, if you're into the trains, you have other parts and stuff, these repair trains that I'm even talking about. And we used to own a train store. It will benefit the town.
Anything that brings traffic in town helps,
Yes,
yes.
that's the long-term goal, is so that when you go to your website, things just in Kenyon are two things right now. The house, and what else? It was, you got your two events, the upcoming event.
The Rose Fest
And
and
then the winter event. And what we're trying to give is, men in particular spend not thousands, but millions of dollars on toy trains in the United States. There's over 200 train shows in Minnesota alone. So the game plan then is to create this volunteer group, work carefully with the mayor, with the city administrator, and when they feel comfortable about it, then we'd like to approach the council. Here's what we've done. We'd like to have an open house, picnic type of thing, and then at that point talk about having a train show. The train shows, most successful ones are held in November, because it's right before Christmas. Okay, so that's the game plan. That's what we're going to try and
okay,
do.
I've got two questions for you, Wayne.
Yes.
First, have you got any other people involved in this yet? Are you,
One.
it's a start.
Okay, but no, just.
And two, have you spoken to the newspaper, the leader?
Yes, they're well up my efforts, right? A copy of this went to them, and I was gonna try and get with Mary on that, and then we'll submit it, and hopefully it will come out like an article
Okay.
showing the station and what's going on and what we're trying to do. And I understand, it's a slow process.
And I guess the third question would be, what, if anything, are you asking from us here tonight? Just
Keep it the voice, but maybe tomorrow go look around on the inside and see what it looks like. I haven't been in the building. That's
well,
cool.
that's what you need to do then.
Okay, so thank you for your time. I'll be busy. I've done this before, by the way, so I might be what I'm doing. And we're doing like at all. We'd like to have another event, bring people to town, see this is really a good town. I've lived in a lot of different cities. I like it a lot better than almost all of I've lived in before. I lived in Chicago. There's more people on the damn freeway in Chicago than probably live in this county and the next one. But I really do like the people, and I like to help out. We'll keep the city administrator and you, the council, advised of our progress. And it's take time.
Well, thank you, Wayne. I hope this snowballs into something big. Anyone else? Being none, then are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Do you have a motion to adopt the agenda as printed? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda. Is there anything that should be removed from the consent agenda, or a motion to accept it as is?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. We have no recognitions, public hearings, presentations, etc. So we can move on to item 7, engineering. Update on First Street reconstruction project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet is a memo that we prepared with some attachments. I'll review that before you're here. Updates since the last council meeting over the past 4 weeks. The construction has been completed. The main activity since the last council meeting was placing the final 1.5-inch layer of the blacktop surfacing, and that went down on July 15th and turned out pretty well. If you've been over to look at the
Oh,
road,
it's excellent.
it looks pretty nice. We did issue a punch list on the project. Contractors have come through and has finished most of that work. There's just a couple outstanding items we need to work with them to make sure they get tied up, a couple of loose ends. In terms of the sanitary sewer services, I know the administrator and I had talked about that, and we wanted to get a handle on how the services came out there. As you know, one of the big issues with that project was the private sewers that we were replacing. And so we wanted to identify which homes were reconnected to the new city sewer that we had installed, and which ones were still served by private sewers and needed to still be connected. So we did put together that summary that's included with the memo. We broke it down into 3 different categories of properties. The first category was properties that were already served by a public sewer. There's a public sewer in the alley to the south of First Street. There's also public sewers, city sewers that run north-south in Spring Street and Forest Street. And so there were a handful of the properties that we found were already served by those public sewers and didn't need service from our project. The next category were properties that were served by a private sewer before our project began, but through the course of the project we were able to reconnect them to the new city sewer that we installed down the center of First Street. And there were 9 properties we were able to accomplish that as part of the project. And that leaves the third category, which is those properties that were served by a private sewer before our project began and are still served by a private sewer. There have been stubs, service stubs from the new city main in First Street extended out to their property line, but because of the way their current plumbing was configured going out the side or the back of the house, their service doesn't currently come out towards First Street, so we weren't able to reconnect it with the project. And so if you look, there's a map included at the back of the summary, and on that we've colored in green those 8 properties that are still connected to the private sewer and what we need to be connected to the new sewer stub to connect them to the public sewer. 7 of them are located on the north side of First Street, 5 of them in the block between Red Wing and Forest, and 2 in the block between Forest and Spring. There's one property on the south side of First Street, which is 515, and that's a little bit of a unique situation in that they're not currently connected to a private sewer. Situation, though, we found was their existing service, they connected a joint service with their neighbors in 509 and came out towards First Street. So we connected that joint service to the new city sewer. So technically both those houses are connected to the city sewer, but they're connected jointly. There is a separate, correct, there is a separate stub that's been installed for 515. And so they can connect their service to that separate sewer stub, and then each home will have it.
Which is what the current standard is.
Correct, yeah. So that's why they've been indicated as, in that same category, that there's a stub there that they'll need to connect to at some point. So those are the 8 properties that will still need to be connected to the new sewer in First Street that was installed as part of the project. I can pause for any questions on that issue before I go on with the rest of the report.
There's been feedback from those 8 homeowners about getting connected by the...
Well, and I think, yeah, that's where I would turn to the administrator. I think the administrator indicated that he had sent out a letter to those property owners to advise them of the situation.
Right, we haven't heard, the only person we've talked to is Mr. Westfall about hooking in, but we haven't heard from anybody else along there. I mean, this is standard, according to the ordinance, and this type of project is that these people will hook into their sewer. So they've got, instead of 14 days or 30 days, now they've got till November, so they've got more time. But we haven't heard from any of them, and I'm sure they will have to follow up with some of them that, for various reasons, either don't get the letter or we haven't heard anything yet, except that she was.
And what happens if they don't hook up by November? Do we do the hookup and charge them, or what?
Well, ultimately, that's what would happen. Yeah. Whether, the timing of that, I can't really say. I don't know, Scotty, you can probably answer that better. What happens if they don't hook up?
I mean, our code requires they are supposed to hook up. I mean, it's a matter of, can you force? Well, yeah, you can.
You can, but you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a process, it costs money, it takes staff and effort to do. So it's not the situation on me, I guess that's what
Yeah. All right.
yeah, it's not a great answer, but can you force it?
Ultimately, you have the power to shut off water, and then when they can't use what they have.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, and it's, one thing I should mention too regarding the sewer services is that all the properties out there are currently served. So there's no one that's not currently served.
Right.
They're all either served by the new public sewer, or by an existing public sewer that they're already connected to, or by the private sewers that are still in place.
Now, those private lines that they're connected to, can that be abandoned now, or are there still other properties that are connected to that?
Well, that we need to verify because we haven't researched the other properties beyond, say on the other side of the alley, to see if there's any others connected. Once these all were connected, all these ones on the north side of First Street, then we could identify if there's any, if there aren't any others connected to that private line could be abandoned.
Because one of the big reasons for trying to rationalize the system, besides maintenance, is I&I. And if this private line stays in service with fewer connections to it, you actually have potential for more infiltration.
Yeah, certainly the best would be if we could disconnect it from our system and just permanently plug it.
Right.
Correct. So that's probably something that we'll be talking about maybe, well, by the time everyone gets connected this fall, that'd probably be something that we look at in the spring to see if that line is then totally out of use. It could be abandoned. A couple other things on the project. We do have a partial payment request that's included in the packet for tonight. It's payment request number 4. That would be payment to the contractor. The identified amount is $33,792.16. This is not the final payment. As you know, we track the construction quantities as they're building it. Of course, it's still today. We're going to be meeting next week to go through our records and see where we've got discrepancies and make sure we come to agreement on all of the quantities. And I think council may be aware, I know the administrator is aware that there was some rock that was encountered during the sanitary sewer excavation, some hard rock that they had to bring in a special piece of equipment to break up the rock. And that was not accounted for in the original project, so we've got to agree to the value of that. And we'll bring that to the city council as a change order once we've finalized all the quantities. So I anticipate bringing it to you at the next council meeting in
The
September.
request was how much?
The pay request? Current pay request is $33,792.16. So looking forward, we hope to have the final prices, the final construction prices all set by the end of this month, so then we can bring, we'll know the final costs for the September meeting, whether or not we actually find out the project, seeing if they've got all their punch list items done, if they have their tax forms and everything completed. But we'll have the cost determined, so then we can determine the assessment amounts, and then at the September meeting, we can come with the resolutions to declare the amount to be assessed, call for the public hearing, and schedule that to occur on the evening of October 11th. And so on October 11th, we would have the assessment hearing, review the final cost, review the assessments to each individual property, and then, assuming everything's in order, then the council could adopt that role, assessment role that evening in October 11th.
So, Joe, I don't think they've got the pay request.
No.
Oh.
So,
That's why I asked.
Do you need my copy? Any copies?
Yep.
I do.
I always print my own copies of my memos, but, to have them. Well, I guess it's not in the back. Well, while we're waiting for the administrator, are there any other questions or comments on the First Street project that I could answer?
Well, we could move on to the update on the fire facility project while we're waiting for him.
Certainly, I know there is a couple of things in this he wants to participate in discussion on, but I can update you on the main activities since the last council meeting. As you recall, just before the last council meeting, we received word from the USDA that they agreed with the contract award with the base bid and alternate 1 and alternate 4. So we did prepare the contract documents. We reviewed them with the city attorney to make sure he was comfortable with the form of the documents. Then on July 21st, we transmitted 6 hard copies of the contract to the contractor. They signed the notice of award right away and emailed it back to us to acknowledge they received the contracts. And then they went to work filling out their parts. They transmitted the completed contracts over to the city attorney on August 1st. And I know, I think they transmitted the first, showed up at your office on the 2nd. And so I know I've been talking with the attorney, and he had a handful of comments as of early this week, but all fairly manageable.
As of today, I don't have the documents back, but as to performance and payment bonds, there were a few things that weren't filled out right, knowledge right, things like that to make it, they're all technical issues that have to be done. So we got them correct, so they're enforceable. As of the end of the day, the last documents I saw, at least computer-wise, are all right. We don't have them back in hand, but as soon as we do, we'll be able to compile and put it together, and we should be ready to get the contracts then fully acceptable.
So in anticipation of that, we've been working, the USDA has a required list of people that have to attend the pre-construction conference before we can actually issue the notice to proceed and allow the contractor to start. And so we've been trying to coordinate calendars with the USDA representatives, the contractor, the architect, city staff. And as of Monday, we identified next Wednesday, August 17th at 3 p.m. is the time that we've set for the pre-construction conference. 17th at 3 p.m. And that'll be held here at City Hall. So the USDA needs to sign off on the contracts. They're not a party to the contracts, but their signature on the contract basically means that they reviewed the contracts, make sure all the right forms are in there, make sure both the city and the contractor have signed it in all the proper places. We'll send the USDA representative an electronic version of the contract ahead of time so she can review it. In talking with her, she said typically what happens is when she attends the pre-construction conference, and as long as she's reviewed the contract ahead of time, everything's ordered, she'll sign the contract right at the pre-construction conference, and then we can immediately upon completion of the contract, the pre-construction conference, we can sign the notice to proceed and hand it to the contractor that day. So technically, we're having the pre-construction conference at 3 p.m. on August 17th. Assuming everything's in place, they could, in theory, start work on the morning of the 18th. So I don't know yet if that's what they're going to do. I know they're very anxious to start the project because they want to make sure they get all the work in the ground before.
They could have their equipment sitting here in town waiting to start that.
They could, yeah. They're obviously aware of the schedule. They've accepted the meeting for the 17th, so everything's lining up for start of construction
I
potentially.
know they have expressed some concern about necessarily being able to meet the completion date.
Well, their concern at this point is the item with the biggest lead time is the precast concrete panels. And so they've already, lined up with the supplier to have those panels prepared, even though we don't officially have a signed contract yet. And right now, the target date that the supplier is going to cast those panels is October, the early part of October, and they would be delivered to the site like the 15th of October. So the contractor estimates he's got between 6 and 8 weeks worth of work to get done before he's ready for those panels to arrive. So if you look at the calendar, August 18th and go out 8 weeks, that puts you like at October 13th. So there's not much wiggle room. So they're anxious to get started so that they can get a lot of the underground work and their grading and be ready for when the panels are ready to show up on site. So, of course, fingers crossed that we don't get, early snows or bad weather that would delay things. too much. But, so that's the biggest concern. And unfortunately, you look at it, we took bids on June 8th, so it essentially took 2 months to get from the day we took the bids until the contracts were done. And now they have essentially the same amount of time from when they're going to start work until the precast panels will show up. So, with the extra layer of the USDA being involved in the project, it did add some time to the processing of the contracts, but I think in the long run, it's obviously for the benefit of the city and the project.
So we can't start anyway until after all the underground is in the first place.
Right.
And if it weather, rains, or something.
Yeah, and so we've assured the contractor that obviously if there are documented, substantial conditions that cause delays in the schedule, that we certainly are going to be reasonable in reviewing those with them.
That we're every bit as anxious as they are.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And the contract allows for either the owner, the architect, or the engineer, or the contractor to identify conditions. If something causes that makes them feel they should extend the, if we feel there's something that, is cause for, we want them to take more time to get things done, because we feel some conditions are not quite appropriate, we can ask for an extension as well. So the contract allows either the owner, the architect, or the contractor to raise those concerns, and if there's agreement, then we could extend the schedule by a change. But of course, as of right now, we're not going to entertain.
Yeah.
No, not unless there's something that triggers that discussion. So I believe that's pretty much everything on the project that brings you up to date. The one thing that occurred to me, and the administrator and I were talking before the meeting, is whether or not the city wishes to do something like an official groundbreaking ceremony for the project. Obviously, there'll be a ribbon cutting when the building's complete, but if you wanted to do something like a groundbreaking, now would be the time to consider that, because the contractor, really the week of the August 22nd, for sure, they'll be up and running full speed. They may even be up and running full speed by the end of next week. So it's certainly not necessary, but we just wanted to make sure that we had that we raised that issue tonight, just in case you had any thoughts about that.
I certainly see no reason to make a big ceremony of it. Everyone knows what's going on. I was over in Wanamingo today, get my car in for some alignment work. Go to pay the bill. Well, when are you going to be getting started on that new fire hall? Everybody knows.
That's yeah. The bigger deal would be the ribbon cutting when the building's actually
Absolutely.
ready to be moved in.
Absolutely.
I agree. Okay, well, good enough then. Then that completes my update on the fire station project. Unless
Mark,
you
you
have
have
any
anything
questions.
to add?
Joe, did you talk about doing some kind of groundbreaking?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just got done.
Like setting a date, though, specifically?
Oh, no, council indicated they don't see the need for it.
Okay.
So,
I did, at least.
yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, that's fine. So we'll let you guys, I'll let you guys know, Mike will be there for sure, but if anybody else is interested, let me know. I'll let you know when the date is or email you. So, okay. Sounds good.
All right. If there's no other questions on the fire station project, then we could go back
Backtrack to
to
the
the pay request for First Street.
I'll make a motion to pay, pay request $33,793.16.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you, council. That completes my report, unless there are any further questions.
And that being done, we would move on to legal. Item 8. Scott, update on property abatement at 411 Bullis Street.
Yeah, you have in your packet, Mark's memorandum discusses what efforts were done in doing the property. Maybe the chief can update where it's at and now what we would do when a report actually is produced.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I met with the building inspector, Mr. Walsing, and we made a plan to go on site and look at it, and we had a little hiccup with the renters, squatters, whatever you like to call them, with getting permission. We explained the urgency of this, and the one gentleman said, fine, just come and you can come and do it. They said, we can't keep putting this off. So I'm still waiting to hear from Doug to see what date works for him. But the plan is he will show up and we'll just go on site and complete the inspection. So that's where we're at with it. I'm just trying to get it done and my schedule lined up.
Any estimate of when, how soon this might happen?
I will call Doug again tomorrow. I'm sorry I didn't get it done this week. It's been very busy for me as well. But I will call him tomorrow and get a date lined up in the next week. So I'd like to get it done before Rose Fest when things start to pick up. So that is our plan. And the gentleman that I spoke to said, yep, then just show up and we'll just do it. So I know they've had some other issues with the retaining walls they were building. They got a letter from the neighboring property saying the wall's got to come down, and he said he will work on that as well. So it's okay. But I do stop quite frequently to see where we're at with things. And I'm just trying to get the building inspector and get this going. So,
I know, I hear reports that, oh, they were up there again today.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm there quite frequently.
And once there's a report, then it's a determination of whether it's a nuisance action, if it's necessary, or something beyond that. But we obviously need to report, we talked about that last month. Obviously, we haven't gone the route of any type of administrative type search warrant. It's the name will get in there, it's a matter of coordinating schedules at this point. So this is the necessary step, and it obviously hasn't costed anything except for staff time at this point.
They were receptive after they were at the meeting and kind of
Right.
explained.
And they understood that it wasn't a matter of immediate eviction.
Yeah. And we explained to them that, you know, once it's looked at, the inspector will make his determination as far as what steps need to be taken next. And I explained to them I don't have that authority or ability, I don't know about that thing, so. That's where we're at with it. Thank you.
So then we move on to item B under legal, ordinance 82, third series, opting out of requirements of Minnesota statutes, section 462.3593, dealing with temporary family health care dwellings. We discussed this at our last meeting. I think everyone is on board with it. This came up at big municipalities meetings. Several other cities are going through this same thing. I mentioned to some of them that you're looking at a looming deadline here. You need to light a fire under everybody and get it done now.
And the only thing I've added to this, and I'll give the final draft to Pam for signature and everything, but I did insert a section under 510.13, so it'll actually be part of the city's code, so people will be able to see that there was an opt-out provision and the council adopted. It won't be some mysterious ordinance that doesn't appear. So we have the number of 510.13 that's in the number of the ordinance.
So,
Do you need a motion on
we need a motion and we need a roll call vote.
that? Okay, I will make that a motion that we opt out according to ordinance 82, the third series.
Second. Go ahead. Second.
Okay, so then you start a roll call with Doug and down the line.
I'm for it.
There.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Is that all, Pam? Lot combination request from Kenyon Ace Hardware. And this is a matter of putting his existing lot that contains the building along with the section that he purchased from the city. And I believe there's another little sliver in between there. You combine them all into one lot, and that's simply good sense. I need to do that myself. I have a situation of 3 little lots that I need to combine. So, motion to approve the lot extension request? So moved. Second?
Who seconded it?
Oh, okay, Doug second. All in favor? Aye. Now, the one that I'm not sure I understand fully,
All right.
partition fence law revision. This is basically a situation where they took something that made sense in a farm.
Yeah. Very old
Environment
statute, yeah,
and-
very old statutes, been on the books for many years, been modified a few times. Actually, it's a section of statutes, chapter 344, there's about 15 different sections within it. It really applies to fences that are post barbed wire type fences, is what it is. It's been utilized in some urbanized communities a couple times. And in fact, I have one city that got an application yesterday for this, even though the council's opting out of it tonight. So it's kind of an interesting case. It has come up a few times. What's unique is cities were obligated to perform certain tasks, which are fence viewing and I guess I'll say mediate, but it's really decide disputes between two neighboring property owners as to value and who should pay what for that fence. And so there's a lot of requirements and conditions and ways and types of fences that can be done. And honestly, they're typically not the types of fences you see nowadays in a city like this where you have a chain link fence or a privacy fence or something like that. That's really not what's talked about in the statute, so it's somewhat misapplied in some cases. It came up in a very significant and costly case up in the metro area. The league went in their last legislative session and asked the legislature to allow cities to opt out or in certain circumstances for properties under 20 acres. Townships always had the ability to do that. So really what it did is it allowed cities to now do what towns do. So it's my recommendation to avail ourselves of this statute. It doesn't mean the city doesn't have fence control, but it does not require a fence viewer, which would be one of you 5 members of the council, to have to go out and somewhat mediate, arbitrate, decide a dispute between two neighboring property owners, and incur the cost and time for that. Some costs are recoverable, it's usually not 100%, but it's just an obligation that worked better in a different time, and probably works much better in a township setting, or maybe, I suppose there could be situations that applies here still, but it really wasn't. It was to put up fences between large acreage for cattle runs and things like that to cover that type of situation. So it's a very old statute.
Now,
Very old.
I may be wrong, but my understanding of this being applied in a city, you could end up with a situation where you have adjoining property owners. One wants to have a fence, the other one doesn't really care, but the one who wanted the fence could force his neighbor to pay for part of the cost of it.
That's what the statute does, yes. That's absolutely what it does, and then it puts one of you in a position of making that decision if you don't opt out.
Not only that, but what kind of a fence? I want a board fence and the other one wants a block wall.
Yeah.
My son has the same thing in Bakersfield right now they're dealing with.
And exactly where is that going to be sited relative to the property line?
Yes. Yeah.
So this resolution 2016-19 resolves this.
It does. It takes the city out of that equation and exempts us from having to be fence viewers. So, I would
I'll make
recommend.
a motion that we pass resolution 2016-19.
And I will second your motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank heaven, that sounds like a
Yeah.
can of worms we
Yeah.
wouldn't want to get involved in.
No, I don't think so.
One can make enemies in a hurry.
Oh, make enemies of neighbors and make us new enemies that we didn't have before.
Create a lot of
Oh, yeah.
headaches for Scott too.
Well, and
Well, at least he'd be getting paid for it.
well, but it's one of those that it doesn't make sense in the
No,
times we're
it
at.
does
It
not.
does not make sense.
Does not. Then we move on to section 10, old business, resolution 2016-22, resolution awarding the sale of general obligation loan anticipation notes, series 2016D. And George, you have information for us?
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, there should be a bond sale report in front of you on the table, and a resolution in your packet, as noted in the agenda. We've talked about it several meetings about the interim financing for the fire hall project.
Yes.
And that's what this financing is. It's, the resolution in your packet, approval of that will award the sale of these bonds, or they're called notes tonight, general obligation loan anticipation notes. And so you would lock in an interest rate tonight. The bonds or the notes are dated September 1st. So that's the date that interest would begin. As well, that's the closing date, so that's the date that money's available. You would be, this is on page 4 of the handout, the final page of the handout. The interest rate that you'll be considering locking into tonight is 0.9%. So again, favorable interest rates on short-term borrowing. This is a 1-year financing. The city reserves the right, the call date, that's the date when you can prepay or exit the financing early without penalty, is 6 months after the date of the bond. So March 1st of 2017 and any date thereafter. So if the project gets done early or gets done, for example, first part of June, and USDA would like to go to loan closing where you convert to long-term financing with them, this would allow that. So that's the highlights, Mayor and Council. Short of it is 0.9% interest rate, and you get the money September 1st. Any questions that I can address?
It's a lot of paperwork to tell us.
Pardon me?
It's a lot of paperwork to tell us that. You made it real short and simple. Trying to go through this.
Attorneys and accountants generate paperwork. End of story.
And city council.
That's actually a pretty short report.
It is.
Yeah.
For a bond sale that
She
big.
was looking at
That's true.
all the things.
Yeah.
And I could talk longer with you.
I like the nice simple version.
Yep.
And I would like to call for a motion approving resolution 2016-22.
I would be happy to make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, sir. Now, moving on to new business. 316 and 318 Kenyon Road drainage issues. Who's going to take this one?
I'll start. We received a letter from Rand and Connie Woodland and Gary and Judy Pavick, who are the two homes that are that wrote this letter. They basically, I won't go through the letter, but they've had issues, and I'm trying to paraphrase the letter without reading it verbatim, with they feel they've had issues with water runoff from Bergen Circle and Bergen Road. And basically, they are asking the city for some type of relief to help address the problem. They also made reference to basically that there was some discussion on the city doing something when Kenyon Road was reconstructed. Basically, that is, I have not been able to really find anything real clear on that. There was also some reference to the fact that could have been, there could have been reference to that being assessed, and they weren't interested in, paying because they felt that wasn't their responsibility, caused by outside sources, etc. So, basically, as I said in my memo, there's two parts to this thing in broad sense. Basically, as I said, the property owners are requesting the city provide some type of storm drainage where they've experienced drainage issues.
letters in your packet. The properties are located north of Trenton Road and east of Bergen Circle. The Woodland House was constructed sometime after the original Bergen Circle was constructed, and then subsequently was reconstructed in 1999. The property owners have experienced drainage down the hill because Bergen Circle is up at a higher elevation. And we've included the plan sheet from the original project. Basically, without going into great detail, and Joe can answer this more specifically if need be, when Bergen Circle was reconstructed in 1999, it was actually lowered, and that crown of that cul-de-sac was actually somewhat lower than the original street. There was also 2 drainage outlets that were installed at that time. Now, the owners have told myself and the city engineer that when that was reconstructed, the drainage actually got worse. Now, in looking at the drainage plan sheets, again, Joe can get into more detail of this, that fact that that street was reconstructed actually should have reduced that a little bit. It wasn't a lot lower, but it certainly would not have, from what the plan sheet show, would not have made that drainage worse. The city engineer and I met with property owners on the site sometime back, and we've observed, and you have pictures of this, that there's standing water at the bottom of the hill. This summer's been very wet, unfortunately, because we've got a high amount of rainfall. The water has most likely originated from Bergen Circle and run down that hill. So basically, when I summarize this, and I think Joe will talk a little more about this here when I'm done with this summary. There's 2 parts to this. The first claim, as far as the 1999 improvements making the area drainage worse, cannot be, I don't think, substantiated. The elevation of the street was actually lowered. Bergen Circle was surmountable curb, and as such, the water historically would have always flown over and down the hill. As part of that project, there was some drainage ways that were installed to help funnel the water in about 3 different directions, and Joe will get into this. You have in that information, or those satellite shots there is what I'm trying to say that Joe put together. You can see there's pictures of that, of where those are. So that would be the first claim. The second claim, the city offered to install some type of storm drainage during Trenton Road improvements. There's really no way we can verify this, and if the city did make such an offer, was it a straight up offer to do something, and B, were assessments involved or suggested to help offset this cost, and if so, did these property owners say that or the property owners in that area said they weren't interested? So the second claim, we really can't substantiate that, one way or another, because it was, 20 years ago, or, a little bit less than that. So, I mean, that part of it we can't really substantiate. So, but options that I talk about are financing improvements, and this has nothing taken into account any legal or easements or anything like that, but theoretically the city's options would be to either try to do some type of grading, tile type of installation, and the city pay for those improvements, or out of the stormwater fund, or assessing part or all of those costs back to the property owners. And that's with any type of project where there's a storm sewer component to it. Again, that's got nothing to talk about the specifics of this land, how we would go on there, if we'd have to get an easement, if we'd have to buy, things like that. If we have to cross other properties with those people, be willing to cooperate, short of forced city action, those kind of things can't be answered. But anyway, Joe, go ahead.
Well, I think the city administrator covered it pretty well. My input here that I would offer is that, obviously I wasn't the city engineer in 1999, so I don't know what Bergen Circle looked like before it was reconstructed. From what I can see from the plan sheet though that I've looked at, the actual surface area of the street itself was made smaller. in the reconstruction project. So the surface area got smaller after it was reconstructed. And when I look at where the high point of the road was before the project and after the project, it's essentially in the same spot. So the actual amount of area from the public street contributing drainage to the cul-de-sac was slightly smaller after the project in 1999 than before it was completed. Now, what I don't know is how the water left the cul-de-sac in 1999. I don't know if it just went out everywhere, if there was curbs there or not. What you can see now is, when you go up to the cul-de-sac, there's two specific spots where there's been spillways put in the curb. So the water leaves the cul-de-sacs at two specific locations. And then an aerial photograph that I put together today and distributed here tonight, I've got those two indicated on the aerial photograph. You can see there's one on either side of that concrete driveway. I'm not sure what the address of the house is in the cul-de-sac, but the one on what would be the south side of that driveway, the water flows over that spillway, essentially down the lot line between those two homes, and flows south towards Trunnion Road, eventually making its way towards Trunnion Road. Unfortunately, on its way there, it crosses the property. I believe the address is 318 Trunnion Road, and it crosses their property on its way to Trunnion Road, and also comes out the driveway of 318.
316.
360. So causing some inconvenience for those property owners. The spillway, the northern spillway in the cul-de-sac, that water essentially flows down the lot line between those two homes and ultimately flows north towards the drainage away from Trunnion. So the drainage essentially flows in two different directions. The southerly flows south towards Trunnion Road, the north flows to the north. So the drainage coming off those spillways the street drainage is functioning the way it was intended to function. And all I can say from what I can see of the 1999 plan is that the volume, the area, the contributing area of the drainage was made smaller, so the corresponding volume of runoff should be equal to or less than it was before the road was reconstructed.
Varying, of course, with whatever the weather
Sure, yeah.
was in that period of time.
Yeah.
Bottom line is that stormwater causing a problem.
Yes.
Right. So then,
Who's at fault? What promises might have been made, that's all a matter of speculation.
well, I think another question that needs to be answered here too, and the city attorney probably has some thoughts on it, is, when you talk about a drainage problem, there's varying degrees of a problem. If there's a problem that's causing, real property damage where structures are being flooded, that's a certain type of problem that needs to be obviously taken very seriously and addressed very promptly. If you've got a drainage problem that's causing, a potential safety hazard or a threat to the public, that obviously needs to be addressed very promptly. So, those are certain measuring sticks you can use, on the severity of the drainage problem. Because really what it comes down to is, the ultimate question of the property owners feel they have a problem. What's the severity of the problem, and what is the responsibility to correct that problem? Is the responsibility to lie with the city or not? If the city, obviously the city could choose to do improvements to try and make that drainage situation better. And as the administrator indicated, you could do some overland grading to try and develop defined swales to carry the water in directions you want it to go. You could try and install some underground storm sewer, which may be possible. Bergen Circle sits higher, so we should be able to get the water to go from Bergen Circle down to Trunnion Road. I'm not sure exactly where the storm sewers that we'd be able to connect into, but there's probably some type of underground option that you could develop. But as the administrator indicated, it would take some expenditures to, number one, develop the solution and then implement the solution. And part of the obstacle in implementing the solution would be that you don't have easements out there to get onto those properties to be able to install whatever